Hi, singing friends. It's Miki here with your singing tip of the week. Today I'm going to be reacting to the Swedish rock band Ghost. And I found out about them quite a few years ago. My best friend has been a really big fan of theirs since the beginning, and he's been emailing me links to their videos forever. But I really got into them more recently. And they're a really interesting group because they're not just known for their music. They're the whole package. There's many layers and nuances to them. And one of the biggest notable things about them is that everybody in the band is anonymous. They play characters and they wear masks. And the band has been through many personnel changes over the years, but the person who conceived of the band and who's the lead singer is Tobias Forge. And for a long time, he was also anonymous, but then because some of his old band members sued him, wanting more money and feeling like they were owed more of the band's profits, because of that lawsuit, their identities were revealed. And so Tobias Forge was unmasked due to that lawsuit. All of the other band members are known as nameless ghouls. And there have been various incarnations of the lead singer, even though they've all really been Tobias Forge, but they've been various versions of Papa Emeritus. The band has been presented as if there have been a succession of lead singers. And I've been thinking about which song I wanted to review for a while because when they perform, there's a lot of really beautiful harmonies, and even though it's a heavier rock sound, they have classical elements and really unique song formats. So there wasn't one song where I really felt like Tobias Forge's voice was front and center and easy to analyze in a technical way. And so I've settled on the song Life Eternal from the latest album Prequelle, which came out in 2018. And this is a live performance on Quotidian, which is a French television show. And this was in 2019. So in this version, you can hear his voice pretty well. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the elements that go into the way that he sings. So one of the things that I really appreciate about Ghost is that they have so many interesting layers. There's the whole concept behind the band of this anonymity and these characters that they've created and this like ongoing narrative that stretches from one cardinal to the next. And so it's like really long band history. It's not just one album, one concept album. The whole thing is a concept that stretches from album to album. So I think that's really cool. And then they have amazing visuals. They have really cool costumes, and their stage sets are always very theatrical and elaborate and beautiful. So it just adds so much more to the experience beyond the music, which is also incredible. And they're considered to be hard rock, but as I mentioned, they have a lot of really pretty elements as well, like their harmonies are incredible, and a lot of the arrangements of the musical parts are harken back to kind of classical composition. So it's just a really interesting mix of things, and it's obviously created by someone who's very intelligent and thinking beyond just creating a hit song. There's a lot more that goes into it. So that being said, let's jump in and watch some of this performance.
We say your name forever, and you see me longing for you forever.
So the first thing that I want to say about Tobias Forge's voice is it's very nasal. And so I'm saying that as like a subjective quality. So it's not that he's like singing through his nose. I don't think it has anything to do with his nasal airflow, although he might be using a little bit of nasal airflow, but it almost sounds like he's like plugged up. So it's like, would you hear me say your name forever? So if I plug my nose, would you hear me say my name? You can hear that I'm actually not using any nasal airflow. I'm actually plugging my nose completely and I'm singing through my mouth, but I'm still getting that nasal tone to my voice because of the way that he's aiming his resonance towards the front of his face into his mask, and he's getting that really buzzy kind of sound. And, a lot of times when singers are nasal, it's criticized and it's considered not to be like a beautiful or round or resonant sound. But I actually think that it really works in his case. Also, he's Swedish and English is not his first language, and he has really interesting pronunciations of words. And so that combined with the nasal quality of his voice makes for a really unique voice that when you hear it, you know that it's him. He has a really identifiable sound that I think really works in his favor. The other thing to notice right away is that the masks that they're wearing, the mask that he's wearing as Cardinal Copia, is so convincing that if you didn't know he was wearing a mask, it would probably take you a minute to realize it, because it looks like it's a flesh-colored mask that's probably prosthetics. I think the bottom part of his face is not covered by a mask. I can't really tell where it's attached because it's that good. And then they have skeleton makeup put around the eyes of the mask, and then he's obviously wearing makeup on his eyelids as well. So it kind of really is integrated seamlessly into his face. It does not look like a mask. It just looks like his face is very, very still. So it creates this really, really interesting effect. And if you don't look like, the way that you can tell that it's a mask is if you look at basically his lips and around his eyes, then you can see that things like really aren't moving in a natural way. But it just creates this really interesting uncanny valley effect where it looks like his real face, but it's just not moving at all. And I think that the fact that his facial motion is constrained by the prosthetics actually affects his voice too. So his voice is his tone is very stable, and a lot of that comes from jaw and mouth stability. So he's not changing the shape of his mouth that much. And so his tone is really, really stable. So if I'm singing a word like right, I'm really moving my lips and I'm changing the shape of my mouth, and that's going to change the sound of my tone. It's going to distort it and make it go up and down in certain places. But if I'm very, very still, my tone is going to change less. And so the fact that his face is so still gives him a really stable sounding tone, which is really interesting.
Would you let me touch your soul forever? Can you see me longing for you forever, forever? I know the light was dark and down below, but in your eyes it's gone before you know. This is the moment of just letting go. She said, if you had life eternal.
So you can hear that he's actually singing in a very legato and smooth way, and he doesn't have a lot of dynamic variation. It's all very, very even. So it sounds very, very lyrical, and you're not hearing any of the effort that goes into singing. So he's using this like really, really nice relaxed tone, meaning that he's not really pushing into it. He's not really like screaming. You're not getting that much intensity, but it's also, he's using a certain amount of compression, meaning that his abs are very engaged and he's getting a very connected tone, even if it's not that loud. I like to think about his vocal delivery in this performance as being almost like a run-on sentence, meaning it's this very, very steady rate of exhalation. It's almost like, can you hear me say your name forever? Can you hear me say your name forever? Can you see me longing for you forever? So there's no pause. There's really no punctuation in the way that he's singing it. It's this long, steady stream of legato exhalation.
Can you hear me say your name forever? Can you see me longing for you forever, forever? And would you let me touch your soul forever? Can you see me longing for you forever, forever?
So even though there's a lot going on, there's a drummer playing, there's multiple layers of harmony in there. There's that piano going. It's all very smooth and there's nothing that's really sticking out. It's like a very, very nice balance of things. And it certainly doesn't sound exceptionally heavy at this point. It's this very, very pretty arrangement, and all of these nice layers are really working in a harmonious way together. You have the audience clapping along, and now it's going to start to build a little bit more. They're going to add a little more intensity on the drums.
We dance once more. I feel your hands are cold. And in your eyes, a story to be told. This is the moment of just letting go. This is the moment of just letting
So now you have the drums really going, you have that nice electric guitar, but it still doesn't really feel like it's bombastic. Even though it's increased in intensity, nobody is like thrashing or going all out. And you can really hear that in his vocal delivery as well. It's very controlled. And on that really, really long sustained note, you can hear what I'm talking about with the jaw stability and the stability of his vowel. It's really staying open. Go the whole way. So he's not go changing the shape of his jaw or his lips and contorting that vowel sound in any way. And you have that very, very long sustained note on the chorus. This is the moment of just letting go. And he's able to hold that note out for so long because he's really controlling his rate of exhalation and the amount of ab engagement that he has. So all of that breath support together enables him to keep that really nice, steady, focused tone for such a long, sustained note without losing air and without losing control. You have that modulation up, and even when he's going much higher into his range, can you hear me say your name forever? He's not like belting it in an out of control way. It's very, very controlled. It's in this mixed voice that has a lot of compression on it in terms of his abdominal engagement and his rate of exhalation. So it's not, can you hear me say your name forever? Everything is very controlled, and it really matches visually the way that his face is not moving at all, and everything is just like very, very controlled. Another really, really nice long sustained note, and he has that high part where he goes up and you can hear that it's really, really nice and controlled. The other thing that I want to point out is just how close he is to the mic. He's really right up on there kissing the microphone, and so you're getting any volume. He doesn't have to push at all because he's so close to that microphone. So that contributes to his ability to really control his intensity and his volume as well. So a lot of the dynamic intensity is being provided by the other musicians. You have the drummer really hitting hard at this point and the guitar player wailing away, but even that is like a very clean tone. It's not super distorted, and there's no like huge like chugging chords or anything like that. So it's big, but it's like under control, I guess, is the number one adjective that I would use to describe this performance. Even though there's a lot of emotional intensity, it's not a performance that feels like it's about to go off the rails or that people are like flailing around or losing emotional control. It's very stately, and there's something very reserved and elegant about it, which I really appreciate.
If you had life eternal.
I really like how he never breaks character, and there's something so eloquent and stately about his gestures and the way that he blows kisses to the audience and bows in this very stately way. And I love that final intimate, whispery end to the song where it really comes down in volume. I think it's beautiful, and it's a wonderful way to end the song. And it's the first time that you really hear that aspiration in his voice. He really gets that breathy quality. If you had life eternal. After the whole song of having that really connected tone where his chords were really adducted and you were getting a very, very clean tone, to hear that breathiness is a really nice contrast at the end. So there you have it. That's my review of the band Ghost live on French TV performing Life Eternal. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you here next week for another singing tip. Until then, happy singing.